Barbara Smith. For many of you, I was am the author of Splash software, and I have been attending the Australian swim coaches and teachers, and in a previous name, obviously, conferences for just over 20 years. So there are a number of people in the community that I know, and I'm really looking forward to meeting everyone again when I come over to the conference in a few weeks' time. I am now the product manager of iClass Pro. So iClass Pro obviously sits in the same space as Splash did previously, and I look after the direction of the product. I lead the development teams, and I do a lot of public speaking. iClass Pro is very invested in research at the moment, and for some of you, you'll know that I did a research project in Australia back in 2017, which looked at the swimming behaviours of 240,000 children. I now have access to a huge amount of information, and we are currently at iClass Pro doing a similar research project looking at the behaviours of 1.1 million children. And I've got a couple of numbers within that research that I'll present today. But enough about me. We have 4 people in the room today: Debbie, Narelle, Nancy, and Simon, who collectively, I can't even calculate how many hours or how many years you have of service within this industry. So what we'd like to talk about is makeup lessons. And from personal experience, I know that as an author of Splash, we actually went through one space, I suppose, one period in time where we took makeup lessons out of the software because the industry was saying they either didn't want to do them or they weren't going to do them. That lasted probably about 5 minutes, because as soon as we took them out, everyone wanted them back in again. And I know that there is a lot of discussion about whether or not you should do makeup lessons, whether or not you shouldn't do makeup lessons. I think makeup lessons are incredibly popular or prevalent within the swim industry, not so much within other industries. So today's discussion is about who uses them, why they use them, the benefits, maybe the negatives of using makeup lessons. And what I'd like to do is start by giving each of the panelists that we have here today 5 or so minutes just to talk about where makeup sit within their program. So Debbie, welcome. Would you be able to just talk us through how you use makeups in your program?
Absolutely. So we've come full circle. Obviously, as you mentioned, we've been around far too long. And so coming from old systems of, booking sheets, no such thing as a computer, and makeup lessons used to be an absolute pain in the neck, because it meant our staff were tied up trying to find an appropriate class. They'd be stuck at the desk. They weren't being able to do other things. It was time consuming. But since, of course, now with all the online software, our policy is, I don't know where we sit in the scheme of things, but basically we have unlimited makeups. There is no time frame to use those in. The conditions around that is that the customer needs to be enrolled in the program, their fees up to date, and they've notified of their absence prior to the class. They do that on their online portal. Once that's done, a makeup is credited to their account. They are then able to book in their own makeup. So we've got quite a structured program. So they're booking into the correct level. And I know, there can be issues around that, but they can choose the class they book into. They can only book in a week in advance. So they won't be holding up a class potentially for any new customer. If they are, it's really only for 1 week. So they're booking into existing vacancies, which has no issue to us. That's fine. We'd rather have, full classes. And then the other side to that is there's no time limit on it. If they leave and when they leave, they've got, say, 10 makeups on their account, there's no monetary value to that. They can't be cashed out. They can't be transferred for fees. But if they come back, in a year's time, we'll recredit those makeups. It's really, for us, that's a benefit. If I leave, maybe that's a little bit of an enticement to come back, because I know I've got those classes sitting there and be able to kickstart with twice a week. We haven't seen an issue with this system at all. Our onboarding process with new customers, they're taken right through the policies. They understand it. They understand that there's not a monetary value to that, and that we can't guarantee a makeup lesson, in busy times. If they can find one that suits them, then by all means book into it. We've had no particular issues with kids going into different classes. All our teachers are trained to deal with the levels that they've got. If there are any children, or if there's a class, for example, a specific class that's a little bit touchy, we would just block makeups on that particular class, so no one can actually book into it. Likewise, if we've got a child who may only, want a certain teacher, we'd be having a conversation with those parents, saying, I'm going to book in somebody else. Oh, there we go. Yeah, sorry. So, if it's a child that might be a little bit sensitive, we'd be talking to that parent that try to get a makeup with that same teacher, or there might be specific classes that we know probably won't work for them. So it's just a conversation. The system works well. I think it creates some goodwill with our customers. That's basically what we do.
Fantastic. Thank you, Debbie. I think that was really interesting that you said that when they leave, if they come back a year later, that you're still holding those makeup tokens. It's the first time I've heard that approach, and obviously, I'm not for or against any of these options, but it's a really unique way. And I think potentially the comment that you made about it enticing people to come back is extremely valid. And I think any way that we can bring children back into the water adds value, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So quite often if people are leaving, they're going, but we've got all these makeups, can we have a credit for that? It's basically, look, they'll still be sitting there for you, and they're usually satisfied with that.
Right. Yeah. So simply re-engage with your lessons and you'll get the makeups that you'd earned.
Correct.
So fantastic idea. Thank you. Narelle, would you like to talk us through?
I could almost say ditto to what Deb said, except our makeups do run out. We do it term for term, and it's countless. If they want to put that many makeups on, if they come towards the end of term, so in the last 2 weeks the children are sick, that makeup carries into the next term. So it goes through. Same as Deb, it's not a monetary value, it's a courtesy. If they do have a medical issue which is severe, so they're hospitalised or things like that, and we know that it's going to take them a while to come back, we actually credit full amount of that lesson. We don't give them a makeup, we credit their lesson, because we know that it's financially better for them to have the money back. And we did a bit of a survey on that, and a lot of them said, yes, if they're hospitalised, we're really happy that you will actually give us the monetary value. Same as Deb, it's not a situation that they can, if they've got 5 makeups, they can use that as part payment for their next term. They don't get that. It's something that sits on their account. Same system. Deb and I use the same system that we use for our software. So they book on the portal, they can book a week in advance. And same situation with children with special needs. We actually tell the parents, look, we'll try and find the same teacher. So we'll search for that ourselves for them and then say, look, we've got a makeup on these particular dates. Would you like to take it? So there's special circumstances. We also do things, and all our teachers are trained in all levels. So it's not a situation that they won't know where the children are up to, because their skill levels are marked off and they're assessed regularly. They're assessed every 4 to 5 weeks. So they know, all the teachers know where the kids are. And if we find that it's a class that actually, even though there might be 4 in a class, but it's a more difficult class, we'll actually block the makeups for that particular one. We'll actually physically put in that 4th child as an extra person. So we have the ability to block. But yeah, we don't limit the makeups. We just limit how long they can have them for. So we do that as a sense, but the only difference is we carry them over from into the following term. So I'm very much the same as Deb, and we do the same. If they leave, we've got it sitting on their portal that they left with 8 credits. So, and it was in that one term and they had to leave to go overseas. We're happy to keep all that information and talk to them when they come back, but they can't use it to actually pay for when they come back. It's just a credit sitting there of makeup lessons.
Excellent. And do you do the same in that it needs to be a notified absence?
Yeah, they have to notify it on their portal beforehand. So they use it. It's all done by them. If they don't notify us, we therefore put it in as not notified. And of course, there's always exceptions to the rules. Children that are hospitalised, kids that get sick, suddenly start throwing up on the way in the car. And the parents just email us later and go, look, I'm really sorry. I was past the time. He's really sick or she's really sick, and we'll give them the credit. So, and there's very few. There's occasionally people, the customers, that will abuse that situation, but you get to know those customers very fast. So, and we just have a chat to them. So it's I'm very similar to Eb, extremely similar, almost the same.
And with your policy for when you carry makeup tokens or makeup lessons across into the next term, is it a hard and fast that if you've got 2 weeks remaining or you've got 3 weeks remaining, is it something that you're challenged by as far as your customers are concerned?
No, not at all. No, they regard it as, we're one of the few swim schools in the area that actually allow them limitless makeups. Like, so we're in a situation, they're really happy. And especially with parent and baby classes, little ones get sick all the time.
Yes.
So you've got to be really flexible, and that's what keeps your customers coming back. So it's not and that's actually in our terms and conditions. So, and that's also on their portal that they have to sign off on those terms and conditions to be enrolled in the class. So they've read them, they've signed off on it, they know the situation. So they're very aware of those T&Cs. So we've never had anyone challenge it, actually, except the occasional one that we've all got an occasional parent that will challenge you. We're all very used to that. And you just talk to them. You get used to talking to parents like that. And it's normally referred back to me, and I have a little chat with them, and they don't like talking to the owner. So we're normally pretty lucky in that sense.
That is great to hear. Thank you. Now I'm going to come back and ask you a few questions, which I've written down while you were talking. But for now, Nancy, would you like to talk to us about how Holsworthy look after the makeup situation?
Yeah. Hi, Barb. We actually use your iClass Pro, so we've got the token situation there. But I must admit I'm a little bit more strict than Debbie and Narelle, and that's a bit of an eye-opener to me that they keep those makeups available to them, especially for coming back. I've never actually considered that, so I've never had that discussion with you girls before. But I just wonder that we are the only child-related industry that allows makeup lessons or freely offers makeup lessons. Mm-hmm. Why do we do it? I think we need to ask ourselves that question ethically and as an industry. I think as an industry, the answer to that is that children learn by repetition. Therefore, we are continually encouraging them, if they miss a lesson, try and make it up. And that's very important for them to get that muscle memory happening so that they can move through the ranks. So I do understand that, but I do question why we even offer that. My girls have always done, dancing of all different sorts, and they missed a lesson, they never got makeups. They play tennis, they missed a tennis lesson, you never got makeups. Gymnastics, the same thing, So it is a debate within our industry whether you do or you don't do it. And I know there are quite a few swim schools that don't even offer makeup lessons. You miss a lesson, that's it. We have a time limit of 21 days. for them to be able to make it up. And I think the hardest thing for all of us at the moment is the staff shortages that everybody is suffering. And if you've got a staff shortage, it's hard enough sometimes to find lessons for the children that you've already got booked, let alone fit in an extra makeup lesson. And as everyone's policy is, you know, if and when available, if you need those classes to fit in your existing paying customers, then there's not always a lot of space for makeup lessons anyway. In summer this year, we did relent and put on a teacher of a Saturday afternoon just for makeup lessons for people who wanted to catch up on their makeup lessons. And that was quite successful. We might do that again. But at the moment, if you're booked in a makeup lesson and somebody wants to go in that class permanently, then unfortunately you're asked to move or to pull out. So that's part of our terms and conditions, and our staff understand all that as well. We also have a little bit more flexibility with what we call our broken bone policy. So if a child has an accident and breaks a bone or is hospitalised for any of those sorts of circumstances, then the situation's completely different. We're very flexible and negotiable there. So it's interesting to see that there are a lot of different ideas within our industry.
I think one of the items that you mentioned there, Nancy, is something that sort of I alluded to a little bit earlier, and that is the fact that swimming seems to be an industry where makeups are a discussion topic, where, like you, I've had you know, children that have been involved in other activities and makeups were never ever considered.
No, we're very generous, I think.
I think the industry is extremely generous. I have heard along the way that, you know, that, for example, as a swim school owner, I offer them because if I don't offer them and the school down the road offers them, then they might go there rather than choose me. Yeah. And there are lots of other discussions that I've heard along those lines. And as I mentioned years ago, there was actually a discussion about, you know, dropping them completely.
Yeah.
But
I think
as
if
a whole,
if you're a very busy swim school and your classes are full, you actually don't have the capacity to be able to offer makeup lessons. So until you get to that point, and like Narelle said, I'd rather have or Debbie said, I'd rather have a full class than the half class, you know, 2 children in a class where you've got space for another 2. So therefore you can offer makeup lessons if they're available. But our hardest thing at the moment is just actually getting the staff to fill those classes. So sometimes we are juggling, if someone's away, we are juggling our permanent bookings around to fill it into those little spaces anyway, so we don't have the availability for as many makeups as we used to. Right. And parents are accepting of that. We put a letter out to say, you know, please be understanding. It's not just swim schools that are finding these staffing issues at the moment. So, and we got a really good response from that. We actually got a couple of parents actually ringing up and ask for employment, so that was good.
That is a very good outcome.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I've definitely got some questions that I'm going to ask after Simon has talked us through how he is looking after makeup lessons in South Australia. I think you're in, aren't you, Simon?
I am at a centre in South Australia, but I'll talk about my company and how we handle them, because I know that much more familiar than the YMCA. So we're basically identical to Deb, actually. We have unlimited makeups. You notify on the portal, the parent portal. We've got a 2-hour time limit beforehand. So as long as they've given more than 2 hours notice. But then we're also similar to Narelle, that if you get an email or something, say they were being sick on the way to the pool or something happened, then we're very relaxed with adding the makeup for them. We have the same unlimited amount, unlimited timelines for us, and we also keep them if you leave, as long as you come back. So the only time you can't make them, you can't take them, is if you cancel your enrollment. So if you stop your enrollment, then you've got 10 left. You've still got 10 if you come back at another time, but you can't use them to extend your period at the end of your enrollment. Same deal, you can't cash them out or turn them into any monetary value. They're just a nice to have and not something that's guaranteed to you. And also you can only book into what's available. So if there doesn't happen to be a space, then you know, you can't get in. And the software, me, Deb and Narelle are actually all on the same software platform. And it handles everything for us. So the parent portal side, they do their own cancellation, the makeup automatically goes on there, then they book in, and you can set the parameters on what they can book. So you can either set it to, you know, say they can only book the level that they're currently at, or depend on your situation, if you wanted to say they can go a level up or a level down as well, you can broaden the scope of what they can book. For us, you can only book into your same level, which means that the teacher is across what you're doing anyway. It's just the parent will decide if the teacher they want to book in for the makeup is the one they want. And like Deb said as well, it may be the odd time you have a conversation with a parent about, or maybe that's not the right class for you to look at. But other than that, it's very much just driven by the customer.
Fantastic. Simon, one of the things that Debbie said, and I'd be interested in Narelle and Nancy as well as Simon answering this, Debbie mentioned they have to be fully paid up. So no overdue fees in order for them to be able to use a makeup lesson or redeem a makeup lesson. Do you all apply the same process there?
Yeah, that's the same for us too.
Yep.
All right, what I'm going to do is I am just going to turn the page on the presentation that we've got at the moment. I know we've got some people that are logging on and logging off at the moment, and I can see them. So if you have dropped out, can you please scan the code, because I just want to ask a couple of questions as we move through. And one of the questions that I am interested in is we've got 4 panelists here, and they all said that they offered makeup lessons. So of the people that we have in the room, who here provides makeup lessons? So what we have on this page is we have, I think there's 10 or 15 seconds that you have the ability to go on your phone, say yes or no, and then we will see those answers on your screen. What I will say is while everyone is doing this, the research that we're actually doing out of the US at the moment, we are researching the swimming behaviour of 1.1 million children across 27 states, and, approximately 100 swim schools that have been using iClass Pro specifically for a prolonged period of time, but in a very good way, meaning they're doing attendance, they're using skill tracking, etc. Now, what we found in that cohort is 93% of those businesses offered makeup lessons. So it was a very high percentage of businesses that are offering makeup lessons. Now, what we should get as I move through, well, let's see, I should have got some answers there and I did not get any answers. So when I get these answers later, I will publish them for you. The next one that I've got is, why do you offer makeup lessons? So what we should see on the screen, and hopefully we will, are some of these answers. Now, if we don't see them on the screen, if people could write them in the chat, then that would be fantastic. Narelle, there we go, courtesy. Narelle, could you tell me, why do you offer makeup lessons?
I think it's more a situation that it's no loss to me. Like as Deb said, it's absolutely no loss. If there's a space in that class and it's not a new client coming in and the class isn't full, so they can't get a makeup lesson. And sometimes you've got a class where it's their level, it's already full, but the child's sick. So there's a kid away, so why not replace it with a makeup lesson? I don't see what the problem is. So it's not that and I think it's a service. We're in a service industry, so it's nice to think that if I've got that spot there, why can't they have it? So it was something I changed over the years. I used to only limit it to 2 a term. And then I kind of went, well, hang on, this class has suddenly got 2 kids in the class that are sick. That child could have gone in there. And
Right.
it's just a really nice courtesy to give to your clients to say, look, if we've got the space, you're more than welcome. And they know it's a courtesy. They know it's not something that we're doing that they get a monetary value, but it's just, and they also are told, look, if there is no makeups that week because kids aren't away or the spaces aren't there, they accept that. And they can book it. They have all that time. So it's really just a situation is, what's my big deal? Like, if the space is there, why not use it? And if someone, and I'm the same as Deb, if someone comes in as a new client and takes that spot, well, therefore, and they've only got a week in advance, well, they've actually got 5 days in advance they can book it in, and a child comes in and it's for a lesson, we start that child that following week. So, but it's, and we say, oh, look, there's someone in there at the moment, or if we can move that child to a different time slot who's doing the makeup, and then we'll give it to the permanent person. So it's just, I just think it creates really goodwill within the industry.
Fantastic. And you'll see that as people are putting answers on the screen, the answers that get the highest number of responses are the words that appear the biggest. And progression, courtesy, flexibility are the 3 that are standing out at this stage as to why people offer them, which is, I think, what you're saying there, Narelle. And Nancy, you mentioned something very similar earlier in that it's about muscle memory, it's about keeping children in the water. So if you're offering makeup lessons, then that is a way to keep children engaged.
Yes, yes.
All right, let's have a look. So we can see here, running full classes is better. Space is available, so why not? A maximise practice time, fill spaces. Somebody has, though, mentioned that they don't have room to. And not everybody does have the ability to offer makeup lessons because they do have either a full program or they have high enough attendance that they're not getting the spaces. Now, as I'm talking through, if the submission does lock, I am opening it as I'm talking. So if it locks, please try again. Do you limit how many makeups a student can earn? And we've got some people here that are saying no. So Debbie, you've already mentioned that no, you don't.
No, we don't. Could I just jump in on why? I just want to continue on the why. There are 2 very, very clear reasons why we offer makeups, regardless of the logistics of booking a makeup. The first reason is that we don't want sick kids coming to the program to spread whatever germs they've got to the rest of the community, but in particular to our teachers. I feel like I've got a duty of care to our teachers as well to keep them healthy. So if parents are paying for a service that they know if they don't come, they lose it, they're going to bring those kids along sick. The second, which sort of ties in with it, and I think possibly the most important one, is that we talk about other children's services not offering makeup lessons, but other children's services are basically sports. We are not a sport. We're trying to offer a life-saving, develop life-saving skills for children. If we all know that if a small child, they can't differentiate of why they've had a bad experience, so they've come along and had a miserable lesson because they're not feeling well, they're going to relate that to their learning in the water and can really hinder their progress, or perhaps even to the point, Mummy, I don't want to go, and we've lost that child or that opportunity to really make an impact on some life-saving skills. And I think we've got to be looking at those sorts of issues first and then how the logistics of it fit around it. But we've got to get our heads out of the sand that we're not a sport, we're not dancing. We're providing a life-saving skill. So, sorry, I had to say that.
No, that is great. That is great. Nancy, would you like to speak to that? Because this is a debate, and obviously you sat in a space where you wondered why. We do this in swimming, but we don't do it in other industries.
Yes, I agree for the same thing. Like I said, the repetition is what helps learn the skill, and it is a life-saving skill. And as everybody knows with coaching, it's muscle memory. that get you to learn to swim, just like riding a bike, and you get back on again and you keep on going. And once you've learnt that skill, you're going to have it for life. So it is an important life-saving skill. It's just that at the moment I think we're under a lot of stressful situations because of our staffing levels that I feel that I question why we're offering them. That's all. But we've always offered them. But again, the terms and conditions says if available. Well, if they're not available, then parents have to accept that they can't do them anyway. So yeah, and the same thing. I'm quite happy to have 4 children in a class instead of 2. I think it's good for the teachers. I think it's good for the other students as well. I don't think I would ever take makeup lessons off our offer and not offer them. But, you know, if you haven't got the space, you haven't got the space. That's all I was pointing out.
Fantastic. Now, as we're talking, we have got some comments that are coming through in the chat. What I would say is Debbie, Narelle, Nancy, Simon, feel free to jump in and answer any questions as they come through on the chat. We will try to go back and have a look at some of the comments and questions if they arise through there as we work through. All right, so our next one is, do your makeup tokens expire? And we know, Debbie, yours do not expire. I think, Simon, you said yours do not expire. Nancy and Narelle, you sat in a position where your makeup tokens do expire. Debbie, what kind of time frame do you find? So you said that some people might come back after a break, for example. Have you had people come back after 6 months or 12 months and try to redeem tokens, or?
Absolutely. Yeah, quite often it might be a case that they've pulled out for, you know, that either the child's not progressing in their mind and they'll give it a break. And but well, we've got customers that have maybe gone travelling for 12 months, and you know, and we know they're going to come back. Others that have left for illness. I think we've got a lot of I don't know if it's everywhere, but we just seem to have a little bit of a run on grommets in the ears at the moment, and the specialists are telling their kids that they can't go in the water with these grommets, and so they're out for that period of time. So there's lots of different reasons. I just like the fact that they're sitting there and there's that incentive to actually come back. You know, they know they've got those extra lessons sitting there. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, so you can see here with our makeups, whether or not they expire, we have 15 that say yes and 2 that say no, they do not expire. So it's interesting to see that, I mean, different things work for different people in the areas that they're in. For those of you who do have a limit on the number of tokens that you are allowed to give, do you limit them, for example, if it's per month or per year? Simon, do you have a limit at all on makeups, or is it any number?
No, unlimited for us. It's as long as you notify us, then you have as many as you like.
All right, Nancy, do you have a limit?
No, it's the same thing if you notify us within the time frame. But I mean, when you talk about unlimited, it's not as though somebody's going to ring up and cancel and want to make up every week.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. Yeah. The reality is that there might be 1 or 2 a term, if that, depending on the flus that are going around and the illnesses and the grommets and all that sort of stuff. But no, there's no specific limit.
All right. Narelle, can you think of any reasons, let's say, can you think of a negative to actually limiting how many makeup tokens? So obviously I think you're in unlimited space as well. Why did you choose to be unlimited as opposed to put a limit on how many they could have?
Okay, I'm going to clarify this because it was interesting. I think it was Christine Duluth asked what's the disadvantage of doing makeups and what is the advantage of not doing makeups, which was an interesting question I saw in the chat. I used to, a long time ago, just do 1 makeup a term, and I found people got a bit disgruntled because sometimes they they would come in and they would come in the following week and see a space in there and think, oh, look, if that happened last week, I could have, you know, taken that space. So it's kind of a visual perception of customers as well. So and then I kind of spoke to a few people over the years and they went, well, what's the big issue about giving them if there's space there? If it's a courtesy, is there a problem with doing it? And I kind of went, well, actually, you're quite right. And some people have said, okay, they're full. But sometimes you are going to have a week where there's going to be, like there's been massive times where flus have gone around schools and suddenly you've got empty pools and there's a couple of kids that have got makeups that could take advantage of that and it allows them to do that. So it's kind of a situation where there is disadvantages and advantages, but because we're platform driven, it used to be a disadvantage of shuffling around things when we were all on paper, but I don't find it a disadvantage now in any way, now that it's all automated, because it doesn't take time away from the office. And my difference is that I don't know how Simon and Deb work it or Nance work it, but we have an alert that if the kids are absent 2 weeks in a row, an alert goes out to the parents and it also alerts the office. We ring the family and make sure the child is okay. And if they are sick or hospitalised and it's just been a trauma for the parents and they haven't thought about emailing, we're the last things on their list to email and notify people. Well, then we actually don't give makeups. We actually credit their classes. We give them a monetary value back because we think, well, they're in enough stress anyway. We'll actually credit that into the following term. They can carry that credit across to the following term because, and we ask, and they don't get unless they supply us with a hospital admission and a doctor's certificate, which they're happy to do. So that's where we're a bit different. We kind of go, don't keep adding the makeups on because it's going to be too hard for them and they're not going to get it done in the term anyway because the kid's sick. So that's where we're slightly different on our policies with sickness. But if the kid's got a sniffle and they're cold and the last thing my teachers, and the last thing I want to see my teachers is get sick because this kid with a running green snotty nose is coming to the class and wiping it all over the teachers. And then suddenly my teacher's sick 2 days later and I'm in strife and I've got to find a teacher to replace them. So I'm on the same
Have you got a snot monitor?
Ooh, no, Nancy, I don't have a snot monitor.
You need one.
Oh, I don't have a snot. Well, I have a sense that we do actually ask the parent not to come in, you know, if he's okay, you know, or she's okay. It's really hard for the teachers to teach with a child like that. And we do get them out and wipe their nose and talk to the parent. Yes, our supervisor does that, but I wouldn't call them a snot monitor. So that's where I'm slightly different. That's where I'm slightly different on the way I do it. And okay, and Christine's got giving unlimited makeup sees people missing for parties don't feel like coming too hard to get them there. Well, it's still a courtesy. If they want to take their kid out of swimming because there's a party on, and that's their choice. We can't change a person's lifestyle. And even if you didn't give makeups, they're most probably still not going to come because their kid wants to go to the party and they're not prepared to fight with their kid. And if they can't find a makeup for that child, because we don't have to worry about that, we just have a policy that says something's come up, we turn around and go, well, if there's a spot in the class, I don't care if they've gone to a party. It's really none of my business what they're doing outside swimming. So if they can't find a makeup that term, well, they don't get the makeup and they've got, if they did it at the beginning of term, so they miss out. I'm sorry, that's something that they've got to take into account. So the parents weigh up the pros and cons. Do I want to argue with my child all day because I'm telling them they can't go to a birthday party? I think I'd let them go to the birthday party and let them have a makeup lesson at the end of that week because there's one spare. You know, it's
so when you're talking about children children doing makeup lessons in classes, playing devil's advocate, what does it do to the dynamics in the class? For example, you have an instructor who knows the 4, 6, however many children they're going to have in their class, and they have got a couple of absences, a couple of different children. Does that dynamics have any impact on the instructor's ability to deliver the class, or do you see anything in that space, Simon?
No, look, I think instructors are just used to dealing with lots of different swimmers every 30 minutes or so. And there's always new kids joining classes because you've got new enrollments happening every day of the week. So I think in busy programs, classes change all the time. I don't see it as any disadvantage at all.
I agree with Simon. I don't think it's a disadvantage to the teachers or the kids. If your program is set up properly, then everybody's teaching the same structure anyway. And when parents say, oh, my child doesn't want to go with this teacher, wants to go with that teacher, we try to discourage that, because what if that teacher was away sick themselves? Not the children away, but the teachers away. So we try to encourage the parents to book the children in with as many different teachers as they want. You know, it's very hard sometimes, though, when you've got a parent standing at the front desk saying, now, would you like to go with this teacher or with that teacher? And they say, would you like to do your makeup lesson on Tuesday or Wednesday? You know, you're saying to a 4-year-old. It happens all the time, so we're all used to that. But right. they need to be flexible, both parents and then the teachers know what they're doing. That's why we employ them.
Fantastic. Now, while we've been talking, we've had another poll that's been on the screen, and I think there is also this perception of how many makeup lessons do we use, and if all of them were requested to be redeemed, what position would we be in? What we actually did in our research here at iClass Pro is we had a look at how many tokens are actually redeemed. And we will be looking at this in terms of Australia as well. And what we found is that 43% of makeup tokens are actually used. Would you feel, or do you believe that that's about the same in your situation? Do you find that more makeup tokens are unused? At this stage, we have got, for example, I think there's 37% there that expire without even being used. We've got 20% that are unused, and of those, just over half are inactive children who these are still within the lifetime of the token. So for those of you doing unlimited timeframes, then Debbie, these are the ones that could still come back, obviously, and you've got the big green bar of the 37%, which still could still come back, which is a great pool that you've still got sitting there, excuse the pun. So Narelle, what is your view on how many of your tokens actually get redeemed?
It's funny you ask that, because we look at that at the end of every term. We can do that in the background of so we look at that, and I would say on average about 83% of makeup lessons are used. That's what we've averaged on. So that's a really high percentage.
It is a very high percentage.
And they are always so grateful that they have that opportunity. We do makeups for our squads as well. They're the ones that aren't used. They're the ones that are on. We wipe them. They get wiped. So if they don't use them, they've got that month they're in, and then the following month. Well, sorry, if you don't use them, they're complete, and they know that. So it's quite interesting how many of them turn up to squads now much more regularly because the parents know they get wiped. So it's, but we were quite shocked at how much is used, and the ones that normally aren't used are normally the kids with the chronic sickness, or they suffer badly with the asthmas and things like that. So it's a bit uncontrollable for them, and we normally just ring the parents and keep in touch with them. So the staff are really good. But going back on that makeup situation with kids coming in, I'm on the same opinion as Simon and Deb and Nancy. We do in-services with our staff all the time, and they know the progressions, and we also test our kids regularly. So there's a percentage on all the platform on what skills they are. So they've got competencies. And so the teacher, when they have a new kid that comes in as a makeup before they start, they actually go on the platform and go, oh, I've got Johnny today. Let's see what his skills are up to. Oh, yeah, they're pretty similar to all the other kids. Okay, I know exactly where they're at. And they normally introduce them to all the other kids, go, oh, we've got a new kid just for today. He's coming in for a visit. Let's all say hello. So they're very used to dealing with that situation. So I have not found it a disadvantage in any way, shape or form. And my manager's great and knows all the kids really well. How she does it, I have no idea, because there's a lot of kids. And she'll often say, no, we won't put him with that person. That's so not going to work in that class, and we'll shift it. So that's already looked at. So when the makeups come in, the general manager and the office staff look at what makeups are in that day and have a quick look and just check that the dynamics, if there is a child that has special needs, may not work in a certain class, well, then they'll shift it beforehand. So it's very well controlled and overseen.
Very good. And that's a very good process, obviously, of looking at who is actually coming through in terms of who's going to be there on the day.
Yeah.
Because I think everyone in this industry knows that no two children are alike. And Nancy knows I've got 3 little boys, or the 3 big boys now, and even siblings aren't alike. So having staff that are able to manage, obviously, any child on any day is what you expect in your industry. So what I've got here is I've got 2 slides. One of them is just what is the positive impact of doing makeup lessons, and consistency, that muscle memory, keeping children engaged is what I think we would all expect to see as far as these words are concerned. So I'm just unlocking this as people are typing. I am going to ask in a moment what the negative impact is. And some people may have none. So if you have none, then when we get to the next page, please say that that you have none. Debbie, can I ask you, have you changed your makeup policy over time? Is it something that you have refined? So did you start out one way and you changed your policy? Is it something you grew into?
We used to have so many debates, my business partner and I, over makeup lessons, because as I think we've all indicated, prior to these systems, these fantastic systems that we now use, like a makeup lesson used to take up so much time just to get it booked in, because you'd have people standing at the counter, oh, yes, can I do Thursday? No, I've got morning tea. And then, this would go on. And so we've always had a makeup policy because I've argued for it. I've always been a firm believer we need to offer makeups for the sickness reason and also to keep that consistency. I'm thinking back, I'm sure there was a limit on it. I'm sure it was like a time frame to use it, but I can't tell you what that was. So unlike Narelle, we're on a month-by-month basis. So it's not like they're paying a term in advance. It's just 4 weeks basically. And so there was a time limit. There was a limit, but I can't remember what that was. As we've evolved and as systems have gotten better, and I think we're up to our 3rd, cloud-based sort of system now that we're really happy with, just the ease of being able to use that. There is zero admin on our part at all. There's zero cost to the business. And if we can't accommodate them in a makeup, part of the policy that they understand, if there's one available, then there it is for you. So yes, it has evolved a long way. And as we've realised how easy this is and sat down as a group and went, well, what's the disadvantage to not offering unlimited makeups? It costs us nothing. They're going into, where other people have notified that they're not coming. There it is. That vacancy is sitting there. And we find that because of that, our customers are generally very good at notifying that they won't be there, because they want the same for themselves, to be able to look at, oh, yeah, someone's away in that class, I can book into a makeup. So they're pretty good at it.
Excellent, thank you. One of the things that I have heard in a discussion at one stage is from a business that did limit their makeups, what they found is that when a family got to a stage where they had reached that limit, they actually stopped notifying because there was no benefit to the family to notify, which then what happened is there was no notified space for other people with tokens to use. And so I have heard that in the situations where people limit their tokens. So in your situation where you've got unlimited, obviously you're not going to come across that. But that is one downside that I have heard from people that do limit. While we've been talking, you can see here positive impact of doing makeup lessons. The number one is consistency and number two is customer satisfaction. So I would probably think there's no surprises there, but thank you everyone for entering in some information. Now we may not get as many comments on this one. What is the negative impact, if any, of doing makeup lessons? So Nancy, are you aware of anything that's negative in this space? Any challenge is probably a better way of putting it. Sorry, you're muted at the moment.
Sorry, I think it's some parents have the perception that they might not like an interloper in their little group of four. Some children have different dynamics, as we all know, and there can be a perception of disruption to the group class. I think that's the main thing. I personally think that teachers can handle that themselves. It's just the parents' perception. So you need to be conscious of what the parents are thinking. But if they're worried about that when their time comes, are they going to book in for a makeup lesson in somebody else's group? So what goes around comes around, really.
Correct. Simon, looking at what people are typing on the screen here at the moment, could you give any advice to someone, for example, that says, one of the challenges, for example, are the wrong child in the group?
Look, I think for us, the system that we're using just makes it so easy. The kids are booked into the right level that they're already swimming at a different time of the week. The teachers are all trained well and experienced and able to handle a different child coming into a group that's already there. I just really don't see it as an issue out there at all. I think just keep working with your staff on their ability to take new children at the drop of a hat, because if somebody walks in off the street and wants to enroll and there's a spot in there, you're going to put a new child in there straight away.
Fantastic. And what about the situation where there's no spots available?
I think, look, you just have to be upfront as a business to the customer and say it's when available. And I think we've all got that same policy, that it's when available. You can't guarantee there will be a spot. So as long as they go into it with their eyes open, knowing that, I think they all accept that, especially where they understand that they've got no limit, and there's a culture of people notifying and staying away if they're sick. So there are spots that just naturally open up because kids get sick. That's just a fact.
All right, thank you. All right, so we are nearing the end of our hour. If there are people out there who are questioning their makeup policy, or they are unsure whether or not they should offer makeups, maybe they don't at the moment, or they've had some challenges as far as their makeup policy is concerned, Debbie, could you give some advice to people that are wondering what they should be doing in this space?
That's a really hard one, because I really do think that it's up to everybody's situation, their own situations, and what works for them. I know that for our structure, there's no drama at all to offer a makeup. I think if you've got a good booking system that can handle and take away the stress of you having to manually do that, then it makes, it's no drama. If you've got the teachers that are, a good structure in your swim school where the kids can slide from class to class or between teachers without any disruption. The other point I'd make is that with the system that we're using, we can block particular classes. So if we've got a newer teacher that we want to protect them for a bit, we just block makeups on that particular teacher. Or it may be you know, Nancy's saying that the challenges of staffing, especially when people are sick, we find in January we're quite short-staffed and a lot of the kids are away as well. And so there might be a couple of weeks in January where we just block makeups. We send a message out to everybody, just letting them know, look, there won't be makeups available for this period. But, yeah, I would encourage anyone to have a look at their policies, but I can't tell anybody else what to do in their swim school because everybody's in a different situation.
All right, thank you. Narelle, is there anything that you'd like to add in terms of anyone that is in a situation where they're considering their policy? What sort of advice would you give to someone in this space?
Try it. It's a situation where I didn't do makeups, then I started to do only a couple of makeups, and then I kind of looked at it and went, and Deb was so on point where she said, times have changed. We don't, and I noticed when everything came up on the screen, all the words and everything, a lot of them said administration time, administration time. We don't have that. It's because of the platform we use, there is no administration time taken up. It's all done with the platform we're using. So it's all on the parent's phone. They know how to use the portal. My parents have to sign off on the terms and conditions so they know straight away they will run out of makeups if they have, and if they're sick and they have a medical certificate, well, they're going to get credited. So it's kind of a bit of a moot point because I kind of say, well, try it, and if you don't like it, well, then don't do it. You know, just say you're doing a trial with it, and if it doesn't work for you, but I think if you've got an automated system, it's actually no administration time to you whatsoever, and they can only book a makeup if there's one there. And as Deb said, we block sometimes when we know a teacher's going away or someone's on holidays and we've got a different teacher, we block that whole week of makeups on that particular relief teacher. So no one can go into those classes, and we know that ahead of time. So it's communication, and that teacher being away, we email all the families and go, here's your teacher that's coming in. This is their name. You've most probably seen them. Give a little blurb about them and go, they'll be taking the classes for this week. So the parents know in advance. So I think it's a lot to do with communication as well.
Thank you. Very good advice. Nancy, what would you say to people that are considering changes or new introductions as far as their makeup policy is concerned?
I think that we're all in agreement. Times have changed, and it used to be a painful process to administer and to organise makeup lessons. But if you've got the right system in place now, as most of us have, it's not our responsibility, it's the parents' responsibility. And if they can't find a spot that suits them for the makeup, well, then they just don't, it's not available. So we don't have to even have the verbal argument anymore. I mean that in a nice way, or discussion about trying to fit a child into a class. So I think that takes the pressure off a lot of swim schools. So there is a lot of value in having a portal for parents to be able to do all that themselves. So, you know, if you haven't done that yet, have a look at them. You can get some free trials and give them a go. It really does save you a lot of stress for your receptionists.
That's great. Thank you.